So if you ever get a chance to stay at the DoubleTree Suites Hotel, it's a chain of hotels I think is mostly in the US. Uh, they do something that you don't get at any other hotel usually. When you check in, they hand you a fresh cookie, a freshly baked cookie. They go to a lot of expense to make these cookies. They actually build ovens into the registration desk so that when you check in, the cookie is warm and ready, and it's usually chocolate chip, so it's got that sort of melty chocolate thing going. Uh, and if you were to ask travelers what their most important needs are when they are checking into the hotel, I am betting you that nobody would tell you that they need a chocolate chip cookie. But every time people get a chocolate chip cookie, uh, it changes their hotel experience. It is just a surprising uh, uh, little thing that really makes a difference. And if you're a business traveler, um, the the thing about getting that cookie is you've probably been on a plane all day, or maybe you've been in a customer meeting all day, and you've probably got another hour before whatever dinner arrangements you have are happening. And this is like the exact right snack to have at that moment. And it's like they anticipated that you were hungry and they made it happen. And uh, this is what we're talking about today. Uh, Cookies. What we're talking about is latent needs. This is an example of satisfying a latent need, and uh, it's a fascinating thing, right? I'll give you a probably a more uh, relevant example. The folks at Netflix were trying to figure out how to keep customers subscribed. They were noticing that their subscriptions, people were canceling their subscriptions, and they started to meet with the folks who were canceling their subscriptions. And they found that there was a relatively large group of people, it wasn't all of the folks who were canceling their subscriptions, but there was a relatively large group of people who were on a limited budget. And being on a limited budget, what they would do is they would subscribe to Netflix for a month, and they would binge watch their favorite shows for just that month. And then they would cancel their subscription, and maybe they'd go and take that same money that they were using for their Netflix subscription and go subscribe to one of the other streaming services and then binge watch those. Or maybe they were just saving it up for another special occasion when they can treat themselves to a month of binge watching their favorite shows. And when the Netflix team went into this research, they were trying to figure out how to prevent people from canceling their subscription. And had they gone down that road, they would have done things like, shame them into canceling, or doing something that really wouldn't work for this audience that is just not going to keep it beyond that month because they literally can't afford it. It's, that or money for food. So they are this was the wrong thing for them to do, and uh it was the team's realization that people wanted to have access to Netflix. They just didn't want to pay for it every month. They were willing to take breaks, uh, but they didn't want to really cancel their subscription. But no, none of the users told them this. Everybody thought in terms of, well, I just cancel my subscription, and if I want to watch it again, I try to resubscribe. But what they'd found was that the new user subscription process sort of didn't keep all of the things that Netflix knew about their favorite shows. The onboarding experience was repetitive and went a little too long. There were too many um, obstacles. So they ended up building a capability, which was the ability to pause the subscription. So basically, you would just say, I want to pause my subscription. And from that point on, you would not be charged any additional months until you logged into your existing account and started watching shows again. And then it would automatically just continue and charge the same card and move forward. And then you could pause it again. And this identification of realizing that this kept people in the system, this kept people coming back, and they got more revenue out of it, was basically addressing what we would call a latent need. And it's this type of thinking, this type of ability to see what users really need, what customers really need, versus what they say they need, that we're going to talk about today. Now, the deal is that we are very used to customers and users having a clear understanding of what they need. They can tell us what they'd like our product or service to do for them. They often have a list of ideas of things they'd like to see us build into the product or service. And to them, this is a clear understanding of what they actually need. They at least believe that. But when you just work on that list, when you only ask your users, would this feature be valuable to you, you miss huge opportunities. Because when you're doing that, you're only tapping into what we call active needs. You're not tapping into latent needs. And latent needs are where the bigger values are. That's the thing that is so valuable to customers that they will go around telling everybody how awesome your product is and how innovative it is, because it's the latent needs where innovations occur. So let's break this down a little, because once you sort of see this, it changes the way you think about research. It changes the way you think about how customers ask for things. It changes a lot once you understand the difference between active needs and latent needs. So, latent needs or active needs, let's start there. Active needs are needs that your users can accurately describe that they have. Uh, they can tell you that they need, a foam pillow in their hotel room. They can tell you that they want the billing address to be different from the shipping address because they have to turn in a receipt to their overlords to be able to get reimbursed for your service, right? So active needs are these things that users can tell you about. And when we miss active needs, we frustrate our users. They really want this capability. So a lot of frustration comes from missed active needs. And these things are often things that they have seen elsewhere. And they are they're able to describe the solution they want. So, when that salesman comes running in the room and says, I've got a customer who will give us a big bag of money if we just build X, that's an active need. They are clearly talking about something that someone really wants, and they're willing to give you a big bag of money for it. And that's fine. That's great. Active needs are lovely. If we can get to active needs, that's great. We certainly shouldn't ignore them. But they are often stated as a solution, not stated as the problem. And it's when we dive into the problem that we learn way, way more. The thing about it is that that salesman will never come barging in the room looking for latent needs, right? Because the thing about latent needs is that latent needs are invisible to the users. They don't know they have it. The way I first learned about this, uh, uh, this is actually a sales concept. The difference between latent needs and active needs, in that in a lot of a type of sales known as consultative sales, which is what organizations do when you solve problems that customers don't know they have yet. An active need is the customer can come to you with a list of what they want to buy. Uh, uh, a customer might have, if you're in the headache medication business, a customer will know when they have a headache, and they will know that when they've had a headache in the past, Tylenol is the best thing to solve the headache. So they're going to go to the store and buy Tylenol if they're out of it. So that's an active need. They know from experience what how to identify the problem and how the solution to that problem is very clear, and they know what works, and they're willing to go do that. But this is just order taking. When you're selling for active needs, you're just taking an order for aspirin, right? The customer already knows what they want. If they don't have a headache, they're not going to ask you for aspirin. So that's that. A latent need, the way it was explained to me, a latent need is somebody out there who realize they're just being a real jerk to everybody in their life. They are going around just snapping at them, yelling at them, being snarky. And what they don't realize is that over the last few days, this headache has really come up, but it's come up so slowly, they didn't even notice it. And because they didn't notice that they have a headache, they haven't sat down and reflected and said, I guess I have a headache. They're just going around acting jerky because the headache is sort of making them do that. And they know that they shouldn't be acting jerky, but they don't feel like they can control it. So the thing about latent needs is they sense there's an issue, but they can't figure out how to control it. And because they don't know they have a headache, they don't know that they should just go get Tylenol. So they can't solve the problem of the latent need, right? People walk into the Double Suites hotel, they don't know that what they really want is a snack at that moment, or that the hotel will offer them one. They just know that something's not right, and then the cookie shows up, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is a game changer," right? So a latent need is something that when you satisfy it, it makes a huge difference. So the thing about latent needs is that the user can't see it. They can't tell that they have a need. They don't know that this is something that would make their life different, and so they won't talk about it. So you can't find out about it by just asking them, what do you need? Because that's not going to happen. They often believe that the situation they're in just has to be that way because that's just the way it is. It doesn't occur to them there's a fix, and they can't tell you what the problem is or the solution. And so that's a latent need. Now we take this a step farther, and anytime we fix an active need, we're basically just meeting expectations. And when we meet expectations, it's not innovative. right? No one looks at this and says, "Oh, that would, giving me a fork to eat my food is not an innovative thing." I notice it when the fork is missing, but I had this expectation that I needed a fork, and you gave it to me. This is not an innovative new thing, right? So meeting needs is not a an innovative act. An example is uh, uh, salesman comes in, says, "I got a customer who's going to give us a uh, big bag of money if we give them an ability to export their data." This is an active need, right? The customer has clearly gotten tired of whatever hoops they have to jump through to get the data from your system into somebody else's system. And so they're asking for that functionality. And the only reason they know they can ask for that functionality is they've run into data export someplace else, right? They know that this is a possible thing to build. They know that this is a thing that they can need. So that's an active need. And no one's going to tell you that when you finally build the export data functionality, that you have built an innovative solution. It's just not going to happen. But if we start to look at what do people need export data for, uh, uh, then we can see where we might provide something that's a latent need. So, for example, we start to dive in and figure out what why there's this need for exporting data. Now, there's a bunch of things that someone could use export data for. They could want to be making a backup of their data, right? They don't trust that the system is going to keep the data available or without corruption. So they just want to have a backup of it. It's too important to them. Or maybe they need a second instance of whatever the system is, right? This is a sales system, and uh, uh, the New York office has been using this new sales system, and the LA office is just opening, and they basically want to have the same structure. Well, that's different than a backup of the data because they don't want all of New York's data. They just want the structure of New York's data so they don't have to reinvent the implementation. So that's a different need than just backing up data. Or maybe the reason they want to do this is there's another application that they want to copy the data into to do something. Well, then you need to know what the file formats that thing needs. In the previous two examples, we didn't need to know what the file format had to be. We could create whatever file format we wanted. They'd be different file formats if it's a backup versus a new instantiation. But the file formats we get to control. But if we're importing data, if we're using an integration, we're going to have to move the data in through the established API of that integration. Or maybe they just want to move it into Excel because that's what they always want to do. I mean, it's always Excel. It's just, people just always want to move data into Excel. So that, at least we know what the file format is. It's that stupid CSV file that was invented in 1992 that we haven't changed ever since. And it loses all the good relationships, and you can't actually support the data in its true meaning because it's a 1992 format. But you know what? It works. It's reliable, and it gets it into Excel. But what is it that they want it in Excel for? Well, it turns out they want to make charts in Excel. Well, we have charts. Why aren't they using our charts? Why are they using a third-party product to do charts at all? Well, it turns out that the reason they want the charts is because they want to show the charts to their boss to show progress. Well, we could just show the charts to their boss, right? We could create a dashboard and show progress without them having to export anything. So there's basically 5 possible solutions to the export data thing, all of them completely different, and 4 of them are wrong. And when we get this request for export data, we don't know which of the 5 we're building for. So therefore, we are likely to only get it right 1 out of 5 times, right? We only have a 1 in 5 chance of getting this right. And so this is the key thing here, right? We need to understand what it is that the data export function does. And the user doesn't realize that we could solve these problems in a far better way than letting you export data, right? We can solve this problem in a much better way. The solution they brought forward is actually not a good solution. There are substantially better solutions. And those solutions would be seen as latent needs, right? This is really, you could say this answers the question, what do they really need? And the thing is that they're not necessarily good at figuring that out. And anything that we build is actually going to exceed their expectations because they're not expecting us to build what they really need. They're just expecting us to make things just slightly easier for them. And when we exceed their expectations, that becomes innovative. So the innovation is really what comes from latent needs. It is very much thinking about what is it that would really make a difference. Now, people often confuse innovation with invention, that in order to deliver something of value, you have to invent something new. But that's usually not what it is. Almost always, the thing that we're providing has existed somewhere else. It's just people didn't really realize that that there was an option for them, that could be done here. And so innovation is not about inventing something new. Innovation is about creating value that didn't exist before. And innovation comes when we turn good or poor experiences into great experiences. And so an example of this, well, let me explain what I mean by this. Those of you who've been hanging out with me know that I often represent experiences on a scale, and that scale goes from extreme frustration to extreme delight. And so anything in this bottom half of the scale is frustrating. And this is where people try to help us, and they give us solutions for that frustration. And we can call anything that's that middle line or lower as poor UX. And so when we're in this space here, The experience that people are having is a poor experience. Oh yeah, you want to see what I'm drawing? Let me show you. There you go. Uh, 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 so everything scale extreme frustration to extreme delight. Everything below the middle line is frustrating. And the poor UX is uh, is what's happening here. And usually what we're talking about here are missed expectations. So if someone comes to us with a solution on how to make this better, they're going to come to us with an active need. Because they're frustrated because they know that the system could do better. And they're going to come up with a solution on how we should do that. Now, this line here, this is the satisfaction line. Right? Whenever you ask someone, is your experience satisfactory? You're talking about this line. It's the middle space. And you may have heard me say before that if we were talking about food, this is the edible line. Right? Anything below this is food that's not edible. Everything above it is food that is edible. And nobody gets really excited about food that's edible, right? Nobody says, "Oh my gosh, you got to try the new restaurant down the street. Their food is like amazingly edible," right? Not happening. So the thing about this is that it's not a very high bar. When we meet expectations, and we satisfy those active needs, right? This is where we get into good UX. Right? We're meeting people's expectations here. And this is fine. This is we've left the realm of frustration. We're now in the realm of delight. So everything over up here is delight. But we're not delighting them by a lot. We're just delighting them enough that it's no longer frustrating. So we've increased value, right? Because people will pay for something that's more delightful. So value has increased. But it's only increased to the point where we meet expectations. And expectations, by the way, are often set by other people, like our competitors. So we've basically created something that does what our competitors do, which means that we haven't really added a lot of value because the most they're going to pay us is what the competitors charge for the same thing. But if we can go off and we can actually exceed expectations, and we can anticipate needs, and in particular, anticipate latent needs, right? Like the cookie at the front desk. Now we're in the world of great UX. And when we're in this world of great UX, we are now in the world where people start talking about what we're doing as amazing, as remarkable. And when they talk about this being amazing and remarkable, the value goes up tremendously. The value rises really huge. It's a big value. And when people are, something that's remarkable means that people are going around talking about it, right? So the product starts to sell itself. This is what people mean when they talk about things like product market fit. Is they're talking about getting something that exceeds people's expectations, that anticipates latent needs. And so in order to get there, we have to really, really understand the value that we're providing. This is the world of, I never knew I had a problem, but now I can't live without this. Here in the Northeast, that's heated seats in your car. No one would ask for heated seats until they've experienced heated seats, and then, oh my gosh, that's like the best thing ever. That's a latent need. And so what we want to do is make sure we're increasing value. And innovation happens because we've tackled latent needs, and latent needs dramatically increase value. Now, here's the thing. What we're talking about here is actually identifying needs that people can't tell you about, which means you can't ask them and get an answer. And this is why you need to have an advanced approach to user research, because the conventional approaches to user research will not give you any hints that these needs happen. Let me explain. A lot of organizations over the last decade have moved to what they call voice of the customer programs, VOC. And voice of the customer programs are just that. They're just ways to hear what the customer is asking for. But remember, customers only speak about active needs. So a voice of the customer program will not tell you a single thing about the latent needs. You will never get anything innovative out of a voice of the customer program. All you will get is something slightly above satisfaction, right? In that good UX area, because they'll tell you about all the things where you're screwing up. They'll tell you about all the things that other people have that you don't have. But they will not tell you about the things that will exceed their expectation, because just by telling you about it, it's already an expectation. It can't be excessive. It is just a met expectation. So that's voice of the customer, not going to be helpful here. It's it may be the thing that all your executives pay attention to, not helpful here. NPS, SUS scores, customer sat scores, none of these things are going to tell you anything about latent needs. They're just going to tell you how well you're meeting active needs, right? They're going to get you to edible, but not beyond. The same is true for scripted interviews. Going and calling people or meeting people and walking through a set of questions that you've already come up with. Because again, these things aren't going to uncover needs they can't tell you about. They're just going to give you a standard answer. And you're not going to find anything from those sort of somewhat faux UX techniques of focus groups, jobs to be done, heuristic analysis, A/B testing. None of these things, these are all the things we're going to talk about in next week's session. None of these things are going to get you there. So what's going to get you there? Well, you have to be a more mature UX research operation. You've got to get past usability testing. You've got to get past interviews. You've got to get past these sort of basic conventional techniques that most teams spend most of their time doing. And instead, you've got to start adopting real techniques that get you immersed in the context, in the environment of the people that you are trying to build things for. And this is the this is where we get into sort of more advanced techniques, which are basically deep hanging out, right? Spending time with your users, spending time with your customers, seeing what a day in the life, a week in the life could be, going and visiting them over the long term, seeing how things evolve from when they first start doing something to when they've been doing it for a while to when they sort of get into some notion of mastery. Being able to see a longitudinal approach to what's actually happening and spending real time with customers and users. This is the only way I know to uncover latent needs. And it takes more effort, but it turns out it is a very much a proven method, right? We're getting into ethnographic approaches, we're getting into longitudinal studies, we're getting into real strategic user research. And so this is really the sort of key approach to all of this. And the thing is, and here's the little secret, once you start to do these advanced approaches to UX research, what you start to see is the latent needs just sort of jump right out at you. Because once you start going and visiting several customers in a row and you start to really see what they are doing, the world changes. And suddenly you're seeing patterns that no one has ever expressed. I remember going out and realizing that the business model was preventing customers from actually doing what they wanted to do. This is what the Netflix team had seen, right? The business model of saying that the only way you can stop getting billed is to cancel your account. And then if you want to get billed again, you have to pretend you're a brand new customer and sign up and go through onboarding already, put in your credit card information again, indicate all the things you like to watch again. You had to go through all of that process. That was creating all this friction for people who just wanted to say, I can afford it this month, but I can't afford it next month, but I might be able to afford it the month after. Give me a reason. And that latent need just comes right out. You just see it immediately. It's really stunning how quickly you can find all this low-hanging fruit that is buried in latent needs that no one will ever tell you about. And when you implement them, everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is so much better than what we had before. What we're doing is propelling those users from a frustrating experience into great UX, where we're exceeding their expectations and anticipating their needs. And that's what having a really great experience. Now, and the next time we meet, go make some awesomeness. Jared here. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you'll get more videos like this. If you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And hey, consider joining our Leaders of Awesomeness community. It's completely free, home to over 50,000 UX leaders who regularly share questions, ideas, inspiration about their experiences. The link is in the description below. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.